Welcome to 2020 or 2020. It would appear to be a year of equality and balance when you think of the figure or the numerology, the way it appears, 2020. But in fact, I think you'll find 2020 is not a year of balance and equality. I call it the tipping point year. 2019 I labelled as the dawn of a new evolution, and I believe it will go down in the record books as being exactly that. So with having reached the tipping point of the dawn of the new evolution in 2019, as we march into a new decade of the 21st century, the 2020s, we find that we are moving farther and farther along this tipping point or dawn of new evolution. The reality of technological advance is taking place at every perspective and dynamic of life multiplies profusely. We become the beginning of the cyborg, and that is the change or the dawn of the new evolution. Let's just go back a little bit to what 2020 stands for, or how we see it as numerologically. It's a year that adds up to 4, but in reality the 2 2s in it create a master number, the 22. And that can also be broken down to 11, which is either or are spiritual paths of a master teacher. So there could be an increase in spiritual awareness or awakening in 2020, this year of imbalance. Given if we take it right back to its founding roots and cut it back to a 4 year is a year of hard work, of setting boundaries, of making foundations, and of forming new directions. The hard work that you put into a year 4 vibration leads you forward with solid foundations for the next decade or so in your new directions. So technically 2020 we could put a lot of good groundwork in for making changes for the future if we do it right and take our time. We do have a new solar cycle coming in probably 2020. So it moves out of a solar minimum cycle as well, the sun, and it moves into a new solar cycle of 25. Now 25 equals 7, and 7 is another spiritual number. The sun often relays to us spiritual capacity or vibrational energy. So the year is looking as though we are turning to our spirituality a little bit more, or we are growing in that direction, or events or thoughts or feelings take us along that path. I think the younger generation will be a key point for 2020. There's a lot of children or energies of children that show up. Now it doesn't just mean children, it kind of means that millennial age group, the group of people who are coming forward now to take control, if you like, of the planet and the direction it's going. This will in turn create new changes in the way we think, our belief systems, the political structures, the way countries are run, borders, concepts, ideas, technology in particular. These are the things that will create massive change from the way we have currently been living. We are on the cusp of, and the epoch of, a whole new dawning of civilization. It's actually quite an amazing time to be alive, but for those of you who feel threatened by change and uncertainty around change, these times might rattle you. They might shake your foundational beliefs, and they might have you finding anxiety and tension being a part of your core figure. There is a lot of fear and anxiety in the world, and a lot of people seem to really click into it and grab it and run with it. It's about, personally sorting yourself out in terms of that. We can never go backwards. We are only ever always moving forwards. So evolution must take place. Nothing remains static. So if you kind of think along those timelines or expectations, you will come to understand that all things must change. They will not remain the same. And when you accept that, you kind of flow more into the changes that are coming. Doing predictions, especially year-long predictions, have also become increasingly difficult because we see change happening so much. There is also a degree of hidden agenda that goes on in the changes that take place. There's a lot of background technological interference, we might call it, in certain aspects of life at the moment. A lot of people are aware of it, a lot of people aren't. It's a bit of a strange paradox. But making predictions has become not so easy with this evolution of technological input and data and the way it is filtered out to the general public, because collectively as a whole the population go towards making the changes that we see in our predictions when we're looking. But when those collective conscious energies are altered by a directive from a certain company or country, then the timeline or future predictions alter as well. So I think a lot of people who do or put themselves out there for predictions have found the same conundrum, that it has become increasingly more difficult to tie down the energies. When you're doing the predictions now, especially for a long time in advance and for many different facets and arenas, if you like, you can see this kind of coming and going of possibilities. You can look in one direction and see a possibility coming, and then you'll turn and look in another one and they seem to have gone in a totally different way. So that's what makes a lot of predictive work quite difficult now. So what I'm about to go through and tell you for 2020 is a possible outcome or a possible prediction. Remember that no one can ever predict 100% accuracy, but I'm prepared to give it a go. So if you want to listen, here's where we'll start. So we've already said there's a new solar cycle coming. It's a solar cycle that will last from 2019 to 2030. This will change the way we live, the way we think, and the things that are happening on the planet as well as in the solar system. There is definitely a lot of energy around children, which I have already mentioned. There is something to do with the pedophile ring that is currently going on with the Epstein saga. There will be more and more of that unearthed and opened up. So that is like a festering sore that will be opened because we are righting the wrongs of the past. There's a lot of energy in 2020 or 2020 about rectifying past wrongs, and it's not just with children, but it's a lot of things that are going to come back to be opened up, to be addressed. Now this is collectively, it is globally, and it is also at the personal level. We're definitely raising the awareness across the planet, and spiritual awareness will be happening. 2020 in terms of Chinese astrology is a metal rat. It's the first sign of the zodiac. So this means new beginnings. And this is what we're also talking about. It's a new solar cycle, interestingly enough. So we have two energetic events, if you like, taking place that are forging us in the area of new beginnings. The metal rat is good for love and money. It bodes lots of creativity for 2020. It's also good for metal industries such as cars, IT, space travel. So technologically, advancements will still take place. We are obviously moving out of the use of fossil fuel for vehicle travel, including air travel, and there will be slowly over a period of time that growth will take part. In 10 years, the way we travel or the fuels we use for travel or how we utilize our technology around travel will be vastly different than it is now. But we're on the path of emerging that in these early 20s. We have eclipses in June and July and November and December, and there are some very powerful planetary alignments in 2020. These will create tensions, they will create change and activity. We know that the planet is going through some sort of climate change or reactionary process. There's debate amongst most people whether it is created or caused by humans or whether it's a cyclical event that is happening on the planet. because we don't have much information going back in the timelines of what really did happen on this planet, it's conjecture. We don't really know. But what we can say is right now, what we are experiencing is unknown to us as previously existed. I do feel that with 7 billion of us on the planet, we are adding to the conundrum of climate change issues. So yes, it is Earth related or planetary related, as well as we are adding to it. It is a tipping point in 2020, and it will probably be the hottest year yet. 2019 has no doubt been the hottest year, so 2020 will just continue. CO2 emissions rise. We don't actually have 30 years left to sort this out. We have to start finding the answers to these problems immediately. And I do think, again, with the younger generation coming through and the pushing and the prompting and their ideas, we will see not necessarily a breakthrough, but we will see more moves forward and some good promising ideas and concepts coming forward to help stop or halt the CO2 emissions and the heating up from human related activities. Rainfall, lots of huge storms and a wet year for 2020. There is a Jupiter, Saturn and Pluto conjunction, which apparently is a similar energy to when Hitler was around. So there's a possibility or a feeling of this potential angst or strife or clashing of tensions between people or countries. Will it be a war? It might be, but it might be more of a individual war, like the citizens fighting against their own political governance, or countries fighting against personal issues or border boundaries. It may not relate in a total world war, but there are some astrologers who are, I think, predicting fairly big actions in terms of global strife in 2020. I'm not entirely sure. I don't think I've looked into that particular area enough. Millennials definitely set the pace and the race. Let's have a look at some energies for America. So if we bring this map to America and we zoom in a little bit, we'll have a look at them and see what's going on. You're going to probably, I think you have an election in 2020 for your president, and who knows yet who will be the candidates. I do think Trump will run again. Will he win? Probably. Do you want to know why? Take a look at the Netflix movie called The Hack, and that will give you a very real reason why Trump may win the 2020 election. There's a lot of background work being done in the political realms globally for every country, not just him. Many institutions and governments alike are using personal online accounts of individuals, on things such like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, etc., to get their own political agenda and messages across. You could say it's a little bit like blackmailing or fraud. You have to watch the documentary. Sorry, it's not a movie. There's a documentary kind of based on Cambridge Analytica, the company that was the IT company that was putting messages across these personal online accounts in regards or relations to the last presidential election for America and the debacle or debate that went on surrounding Hillary Clinton, and how Trump managed to put an awful lot of money into persuading certain news articles and events to be put into people's online accounts to help with certain voting issues. Now, he's not the only one to do it. There are other countries, big countries, who are also playing into this role, and this is affecting the very outcome of the world we live in. So in fact, we're still being manipulated by a few global powers and leaders. Even though we think we have individual or personal freedom, we don't. So, and the more IT literate we become, or the more connected we become, the worse our freedom becomes. And that must be obvious to you all anyhow. But yes, I think Trump may go back in. There will be some angry debates and disputes, which there have been the whole way through with him. There will still be more fallouts before the elections are ended, but I do think there is victory around him. Now remember, this is one possible outcome. One of the reasons is he has just hired recently another person who worked for Cambridge Analytica to do his advertising and campaigning for 2020. And the amount of money he spends is more than anyone else. And these people he has hired are brilliant at the game they play. Hence, he's likely to get in. There is a bit of deception that goes around with this potential election, or himself, and someone gets found out, the walls do begin to crumble, but there is this feeling that he still goes through. I'm not sure why or how, especially if it's all found out and made public, but it seems for a lot of people, you know, we know America's very split, it's very divided vote-wise, and whether people either seem to hate him with intensity or love him with passion. And I think that just continues to carry on. There's something for someone in America, maybe in the political realm, there's a question about the brain, the head, and a head operation. I'm not sure what that could be. If we have a little look at California, and funnily enough, Disneyland seems to come up for some reason. I'm not sure what's going on with Disneyland. I've just got a question mark. Does something happen? Is it on one of the rides, like a volcano looking thing, or a tower? Or is that symbolic of something happening with Disneyland itself, maybe from its share perspective? But it's one of the richest companies there is. So I think Disneyland just comes into the public arena for some reason, or into the news in 2020. I'm hoping it's not a problem at the park, but there may be something that does actually happen at the park, most likely in the California Disneyland area. If we look at California and possible quakes, because you did get some big quakes in 2019, there is still energy in the wine regions, and is that Napa Valley? And this could be related to the post-quake, from the big quake that you had in 2019. It could be like a 6 or a 5, and it could be around the harvest time when the grapes are harvested, or in summertime, and it could be by the coast. You may also get a bigger quake in a slightly more mountainous area, and that could be, you could even get a quake up or around an 8 possibly. With America, we're still seeing the liar energy coming, which is untruths being opened, and that is probably this Epstein saga, the pedophilia ring, which is global, it's not just American. It goes very deep, and we will see this opening up more. We'll still see more liars coming to the surface. We're on a real, you could call it, which is one of Trump's terms, isn't it? We're on a witch hunt at the moment to dig out the decay. So it's still going on, and it will become like a witch hunt. You feel this energy, people just chasing to find what is going on, who has committed these crimes, how can we punish them? And there's a lot of unseen factors behind it. We know that Jeffrey Epstein was doing a little bit more than just the pedophilia ring. There was a lot of high-end names tied into that. And there's intelligence going on in the background, there's all sorts of stuff. Did he commit suicide? No, not at all. He was either taken out, like killed, or he was taken to somewhere safe. So no, he didn't commit suicide. What else have we got for California? Hot. fires, trees. We're talking about intense heat in 2020. Also conflict and tension, possibly tension with the Middle East. The US dollar, there's not total collapse there. There's new ideas or deals around things, and possibly new concepts or farming, something to do in that area as well. So I think the dollar is not in total collapse mode for America. I think the finances will just carry on the way they are. They're doing okay. You're not into, we're not going to see this 2008 global recession, I don't feel, in 2020. Yes, finances title up, but there might be even new ideas or concepts that come around space, or some new economies and companies that start up that manage to keep finances running one way or another. We only need to think of things like 10 years ago, no one would have thought that most of the wealth was contained in data information with companies like Facebook and Instagram and Google and YouTube. They hold immense wealth. So there's a possibility that the wealth is kept circulated because it's more dispersed than it was back in 2008. If we look now at Canada, which is just sitting up here, so if we take a look at Canada now, Canada have their elections in October of 2019, and I'm doing this prediction upload in September of 2019. So this is just before their elections, and it would seem that people have been a little bit dissatisfied with Justin Trudeau's, I was going to say presidency, but prime ministership, or the leadership of the country under him. There's great interest in the area up around the top of Alaska, which is what Canada borders with, and in through to Greenland as well, because we know that they're a very resource-rich area, part of the planet, as well as it's going through immense change up there in the Arctic Circle. And it's also, in terms of Alaska, very close to Russian territory. For the elections for Canada, it feels as though people are dissatisfied. There's a possibility they want to see change. Trudeau's party is going to have to really work hard to try and get the voters to swing in his direction. But the possibility is that Canada sees some sort of change in the way the politics is led. So I don't think that the party goes back in its format that it is. So Justin Trudeau may not even be in power, but if he does get to go back in power, it could be with minorities that he manages to co-party with, like the MMP system. It could take a while for this decision to show up, so it might be that it has to be negotiated through several different parties. So there is a possibility that there's a chap called Andrew Scheer, who I think used to be in the leader before Justin Trudeau. There's a possibility that his party may take favourship again, or also be able to form some sort of minority leadership. I just think for Canada that politics will change as this election goes through, and they may have to wait a while for the results. But other than that, Canada, although they've got internal discontent, they're not doing too badly in terms of finances again. So both America there and Canada seem to be trundling along, like life is ticking over. They're not headed into the depths of despair. Their countries will just continue to tick along for 2020, maybe with a political change for Canada, and maybe for same governance for America, is the general feeling there. We have a little bit of an issue going on right now in 2019 where we have the term, the Amazon is burning, our lungs can't breathe. Well, I think technically it will be okay. I believe there's going to be something that happens collectively to help restore it or turn around this issue with the Amazon rainforest, even though the government there is kind of like not that happy about it and not that obliging or willing, but I think that the masses that be are going to see if they can get some sort of change taking place. So regards the Amazon, this could be the beginning of one of these tipping point situations whereby we try to reverse the cycle of negativity and the culling and the clearing of the Amazon, or we slow it down, or we find some way of reparation or rebuilding it. But again, as I say, this is the beginning of this happening. It's a long cycle or process of change. Moving on to Australia, there's something here for Australia about goodbye old and hello new, and this could be quite a sudden direction because Australia are quite determined or stubborn about their changes or who they are or what they do, but it feels as though something really quick might be coming for them. I do see storms around their coastlines, and like cyclonic or hurricane type storms, also potentially something that's got to do with their oceans or their seas or water one way or another. And I have a feeling that the events that are coming are unexpected, these changes. Now these changes could be political, but that's not new for Australia because they seem to go through prime ministers or premiers or whatever it is that the leaders in Australia have, because there's different types. There's interstate and then national per se, but they go through changes all the time. There's something coming that's a bit unexpected for Australia, and it is quite a rapid change. It's very hot again in their summer, red hot. I think their crops may be affected one way or another. Is this from burn-offs or disease or lack of ability to grow? There are parts of Australia that haven't seen rain for 7 years or 6 years. This is a dry continent, and with the planet heating, it will become drier. So they have to manage their water, or they have to find ways of dealing with irrigating or keeping their continent more wet, or bringing water in. Maybe they utilise desalination to a greater degree, or maybe there's a breakthrough in some sort of technological advance for watering for those guys. They, as I said, they still have fires. And right now in September, they've started their fire season already, which is the earliest ever recorded. Because why? 2019 is the hottest year we've ever recorded. 2020 will be hotter again. Let's have a little look at New Zealand since we're down here by Australia. This is my little hometown here, tiny little nation where we sit sort of in the midst of nowhere, and we are called, in terms of Maori, Aotearoa, land of the long white cloud. We often have cloud over us, being an island nation surrounded by water. A lot of you around the world may have come to understand that we have a Prime Minister called Jacinda Ardern. This might have been brought to your attention in 2019 in March. We had a mass terror attack where 52 Muslim attendees at their local mosque, or 2 mosques, were shot by a terrorist. Unfortunately, that made quite a lot of global impact, but it did create a little bit of change around some laws, especially public online accounts such as Facebook, YouTube, for streaming and things like that. So Jacinda Ardern became a very public figure in a very quick way. We have an election next year in 2020, and the question is, will she be re-elected? I'm thinking that she will, but even though she has a very global public persona of great appreciation and honour and this caring, compassionate person, technically at home in New Zealand, her politics are very young because she is a young politician in terms of governing a country. So there are still people here in New Zealand who are not that happy with her policies or the way she handles certain perspectives. However, I think eventually Jacinda will become a global political figure as opposed to a New Zealand figure. She will probably represent the United Nations or be some person of prominence to do with human rights around the planet. And this may not be anytime soon, but I think this is where her future is going. So coming back to New Zealand, yes, I think she will be re-elected, but there could be some party bust-ups. There is balance that has to be called upon. It feels as though she will have people either leave her party or the people she co-parties with, such as the Greens and New Zealand First. Something is going to go belly up there. So she will have to recapitulate things to try and keep a parliament or power in place. We could see some deaths of prominent people in New Zealand, most likely older prominent people. We have a change in direction, but it feels fairly positive. We could have quakes that are related to the moons or the eclipses during the year, and so the quakes could occur at night time, and they could be in less populated regions, possibly in mountainous areas or coastal areas where there are mountains, and possibly in the 2nd or 4th month of the year, and maybe up and around the region of like a 7. So relatively large quakes are possible for 2020, but they may not affect as much of New Zealand as some of our previous quakes in Christchurch and Wellington have affected. We'll just have to wait and watch that one out. While we're on this tour of the world, let's move up and across to Europe and to the UK. Which is going through its own very turbulent time in many different ways and perspectives. It's like they're being shaken to the core, to their foundations. Let's start with royalty. We'll try the royalty. They're sometimes known as the family tree, the British monarchy, and it feels as though it's upturned a little bit, royalty upturned, but I kind of got that in 2019. If you go back and listen to my 2019 predictions, I'm still getting a shake-up in the royals. Is there hidden information that comes out? We've already had some about Prince Andrew being involved with Epstein and the pedophilia ring. We know that to be true. We know it is not a lie. He's still trying to deny it at this point in time. At some point he's going to have to come clean and acknowledge what he did. But what does that do for the royal family, and how much further in does it go, and how much more deceit has been going on? I think the Queen is fairly clear of any issues along those lines, but there could be other things that are brought to the surface, or other people in the royal family who are affected one way or another. There's something possibly that happens to one of the castles or at one of the castles that the monarchy hold reign over. And so that makes me think, is there a chance of a change of home for the Queen? Now, I know she lives in several of the different castles, but what does that statement mean, a change of home for the Queen? We could think, does that mean she might give up the throne, or does it mean she has to shift home for one reason or another, or is there a change of hands of some sort? Something to just think about. I think they are watching their money spending and how they spend their money, because the public seem to be more distrusting or more there's more animosity about overspending, or just blatantly spending taxpayers' money. So I think that comes to the fore in 2020. And with that said, I believe that affects Meghan and Harry, and that's already starting in September when people are questioning how they're flying around on private jets. To be honest, that's not really a major issue, but it's affecting them and how they operate. So money issues seem to play a role in the royalty. And I think Meghan and Harry tend to not be quite as public in 2020. They do make some changes in their life, and there's a possibility of another pregnancy for Meghan. There's also a possibility of a change of home for them, or some sort of addition in the home. There's a possibility that someone older in her or his life may be coming to the end of their lives. So beginning a terminal illness or beginning to just decline in health. So remember that it could be friends or relatives of either of those two, that someone older is coming to the end of their life. With Prince William, it's got here that diet is important and health is on his mind. He's walking away from something, and we're thinking, is it walking away from his old life? I'm not sure, but there seems to be some sort of change of attitude or something around a health perspective or dynamic for him, probably him more than his wife. There is a possibility of another child for them. I don't think William becomes king at all in 2020, but if we look at Charles, we go, does he become king in 2020, which would mean for some reason the Queen would denounce her throne and pass it over to him. There is a feeling that the family does change dynamics somehow, and the liar card keeps popping up, and we come back to Andrew. And then the family tree card comes in. So there's a message here about dynamics and changes, and it affects the whole family. And again, it could just still be hidden agenda that we're not privy to yet, that gets opened up or spun out or something along those lines. But regards Charles, yes, he has the skills to become king now, and there is potential for this to happen. I initially didn't think that Charles would. I thought it might have been his children. They will inevitably, William and his children will become the kings. So I think from when the Queen leaves her reign, we will have king after king after king for years, hundreds of years, I guess. So this could be the last Queen for a very long time. Now if we come to Brexit for the UK, what is happening in September and October of 2019 appears to be where it is headed. So we have got Boris Johnson in now, and as I predicted that Theresa May wouldn't make it out through the end of 2019, and she didn't after many takeover bids. Boris is not going to have much more luck. He's not going to do much better in terms of just general public discontent and disconnect. I don't think they do leave the EU on October the 31st. I think there is either an extension or something else that happens. Now, perhaps summer of next year provides an answer, but it appears that research is being done about this whole Brexit, about the leaving, about trying to get a better deal. So there's a lot of work going on in the background and research. There could possibly be, in terms then, another referendum. And if there's another referendum that's given to the public, I don't believe they'll leave the EU. So that could change the whole dynamic. Now, if there's another referendum, then it must make sense that Boris Johnson is turfed out, which then means who goes in. It doesn't look like it's Jeremy Corbyn. It appears to be, if it is someone else, it's a male. So you get a new, if Boris is turfed out, which I think he probably will be, then you get a new male leader that is probably a water sign leader, and it could be in or around July or March of these 2020 type period. Now, I haven't looked into Russia this year because what is there to say? Really, he rules the country with an iron hand. What he says is what happens. He kind of has been doing the same thing that he has for a long time, extending his tenureship, extending his dictatorship, extending his claw all around. Putin is in a moving outward growth phase. He's still trying to hide certain perspectives or dynamics or realms. It's not going to change. So there was really no point looking. North Korea, I think it's similar again. They're coming and going, they're playing games. I think this whole energy just keeps on going. You know, good on Trump for trying to have talks with North Korea, and to a degree Trump was right when he said that did stall, for the most part it stalled missiles being ejected off the North Korean coast, but he's back at it again. So this will continue on and off, on and off. You know, it's like a game playing out. And in terms of other countries, I have to apologise, I haven't really done any specific other countries, because I think the main messages are about the energy of 2020, how we're on the cusp of a tipping point. So if your own country hasn't been talked about or mentioned, you're pretty much following the energies of what I have said. Everything is moving, things are tipping in a different direction. New change is imminent upon us. If your political realm is teetering or on the brink of faltering, or people are disconnected or angry, it will continue. We can think of places like Hong Kong, who currently in September in 2019 have had months of fighting because of this uprising of angry citizens. It's going to just be the way forward. The citizens are going to start making the politicians change how the way countries are run, and it's happening globally. So politically we will see uprisings, changes, sudden elections taking place. You will just see the public become more and more dissatisfied and wanting transparency and wanting their say to be had. So yeah, I guess this is it, the tipping point. We're on the way. We're on the top of the roller coaster, about to go down the wave, and however we get there and whatever we do is where we're headed. So anyhow guys, thanks for listening. If you leave a message in the comments below and I get time, I can possibly look into one of your countries if you're asking questions, because there are just so many different perspectives globally. We can't really cover off everything in one reading. But thank you again for tuning in, and I do wish you all a good, safe 2020 with all the changes ahead. Take care.